Visualeconomik community, we've talked several times about Germany's economic disaster on this channel. With almost a century behind them, large German companies seem to have become obsolete in the modern world, unable to adapt to the new market or new rivals. During the 2008 crisis, China was Germany's lifeline. Companies such as Volkswagen found a huge market in which to sell their products, while European economies were far too depressed to afford new cars. However, that honeymoon is long over. These days, Volkswagen's operating profits in China are barely half of what they were at their 2015 peak. German cars are going through a bitter divorce, watching how Chinese competitors are stealing their thunder, both within and beyond their borders. Or at least, that's the most widely accepted version. But what if things were about to change? Europe has many problems. Even so, many people are too quick to announce the demise of the old continent's corporate giants. Even if they are not at their best, we're still talking about massive companies with more than enough muscle to weather tough times long enough to adapt. And make headlines like this.
Volkswagen overcomes China EV slump by doubling European sales.
And pay attention, as we often say around here, this isn't some kind of competition between Europe and China. For companies, geopolitical rivalries don't really matter all that much. Or put another way, Volkswagen and Chinese automakers aren't enemies, no more than, say, BMW, Toyota, or Tesla. What's more, we'll soon see that these companies are playing a key role in the German giant's rebirth. And watch out, because there's a lot at stake here. The automotive sector represents about 7% of European GDP and provides direct and indirect employment to some 14 million people. So the big questions are clear. Can the European automotive industry really still compete? What exactly is Volkswagen doing to explain this sales boom? And what role does China play in all this? We're about to tell you all about it right now. But before we dive in, be honest, how many AI tools are you juggling right now? One for writing, another for images, maybe a third for videos. It's a mess, and your wallet definitely feels it. That's exactly why Chat LLM by Abacus AI exists. It's an all-in-one platform that brings every top AI model together under one roof. No more bouncing between apps. Everything you need is right here. You'll get access to ChatGPT 5, ChatGPT o3 Pro, Gemini 2.5 Pro, Claude 4.5, DeepSeek, Grok 4, and plenty more. And the cool part, Root LLM automatically chooses the best model for your prompt, so you always get the smartest, most accurate answer without overthinking it. But this isn't just about text. Chat LLM can also generate next-level images with models like Dream 4.0, Nano Banana, Ideogram, Flux, and Recraft, and even videos with tools like Kling, Sora 2, One 2.5, Runway, Haluo, or Luma. Worried your AI content still sounds like, well, AI? The Humanize feature fixes that instantly, making your writing sound natural, authentic, and impossible for detectors to flag. And if you want to go beyond prompts, meet Deep Agent, your all-purpose builder that can create full websites, apps, AI chatbots, presentations, even research reports. Plus, Deep Agent Desktop, a free coding assistant and editor, comes included. All of that for just $10 a month? Seriously? The value's insane. So why juggle a dozen tools when you can have one that does it all? Head to chatllm.abacus.ai or click the link in the description to try it today. And now, back to our topic. Before we dive into the heart of the matter, let's get a few numbers straight. In 2023, Volkswagen generated revenue of $350 billion. To put that in perspective, China's entire electric car industry generated around $310 billion. Yes, you heard correctly. Although everyone is talking about Europe's decline, and with good reason, it's worth remembering that the starting point is very different. And if we look at profits instead of revenue, the picture changes slightly, but not by much. Volkswagen earned around $66 billion, while all Chinese EV makers combined earned less than $75 billion. Now, we're not saying that Volkswagen doesn't have problems. It does, and serious ones, but they need to be put into context. What's more, this hasn't been the first major crisis that the German giants have managed to overcome. So, what crisis are we talking about exactly? Well, things like this.
Volkswagen plans to close at least 3 German plants and cut thousands of jobs.
In the end, VW agreed with the unions not to lay off anyone or close any factories. The involvement of the state of Lower Saxony, which owns 20% of the company's voting shares, was crucial here. And naturally, with 100,000 workers in this province, the last thing politicians want is mass layoffs. Meanwhile, there are factories in China that are so automated that they don't even need workers and operate in the dark. That said, the German giant plans to save 4 billion euros by cutting capacity at some factories and offering voluntary retirement plans to 35,000 workers. Basically, it's cheaper for them to bribe these employees to go home than to keep them working. The reason? It all boils down to one thing: Volkswagen's inability to produce affordable cars that people actually want. And if you produce things that people don't want, having more people producing them is useless. The fact is that this combination only spells trouble. In the electric car sector, Volkswagen was making very expensive cars, and let's be honest, of rather poor quality. Yes, we're talking in the past tense, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. The first electric models were basically traditional cars, but with an electric motor instead of a gasoline engine. And here we must make one thing very clear. Inside, an electric vehicle is nothing like an internal combustion engine vehicle. We're talking about completely different things, a fact that Volkswagen took a long time to recognize. And as for the software, the other big difference with traditional vehicles, let's not go there.
The company has since grappled with its in-house software division, Cariad, founded in 2020, which has been bogged down by bugs. Poorly designed software led to long delays in the rollout of models such as Audi's Q6 e-tron and Porsche's first all-electric Macan.
As if all this were not enough, not only did VW fail to manufacture the best electric vehicles, but its manufacturing plants are also much more expensive than the competition, twice as much, according to the company's CEO. But there are even more problems. The German giant had bet heavily on Northvolt, the European startup that was set to completely revolutionize the electric battery market in Europe. It invested more than 1.4 billion euros. The result? The startup had to close because it couldn't deliver on any of its promises. All this explains why the VW Group's revenues fell by 64% in the third quarter of last year. A terrible figure, just when it was recovering from the tremendous reputational damage caused by Dieselgate. You know, when VW rigged the meters on its cars to make them appear to have lower emissions. Yet, as we've already mentioned, this is not the first crisis the German company has faced. Back in the 1960s, VW only manufactured the iconic Beetles. These cars were already very old for the time and could not compete with the newer models from the competition. Sound familiar? Well, in 1974, they made a 180-degree turn in their business policy and bet everything on a different model, the Golf. Later, in 1993, Europe was in the midst of an economic recession, and VW reported losses of 1 billion euros. Once again, it was becoming outdated, and its factory costs were much higher than those of its competitors. The solution? It reached an agreement with its workers to cut wages, restructure the workforce, and extend working hours. 2 years later, productivity had shot up by 30%, and Volkswagen was still at the forefront of the European industry. Clearly, the question right now is, will this company perform another miracle? Well, it turns out the answer is that you don't need to be a fortune teller or have a crystal ball. It's already happening. In recent months, sales of electric vehicles by the German group have skyrocketed, particularly in Europe. To give you an idea, more than half of the top 10 best-selling models on this continent were Volkswagen models. Or to put it another way, last year, VW accounted for 23% of electric vehicle sales in Europe. Today, it accounts for more than 30%. During the first quarter of the year, its sales in Europe doubled compared to last year. Yes, you heard correctly, sales doubled. And keep in mind that despite Donald Trump's tariffs, sales in the US grew by 51%. Remember that in the previous quarter, sales were falling by 60%, so we're talking about a huge comeback. And in the second quarter, they grew by another 32% worldwide. Some brands within the Volkswagen Group, such as Skoda, have increased their operating profits by 12%, which, trust me, is not bad at all. Yes, it's true that sales in China continue to decline, having fallen 25% in the last 5 years. Nevertheless, in absolute terms, they remain quite high, around 1 million units less than BYD. But the important thing is that it is compensating for this with Western economies. And don't think that they're selling so many cars because they're giving them away at bargain prices in a different move. In fact, each electric vehicle is about 10,000 euros more expensive than its traditional combustion engine counterparts. And yes, it's also true that electric vehicles still represent a relatively small percentage of their sales, around 17%, but the trend is clear. The main message is obvious. The German giant is finally adapting to the new market. Of course, no one knows what will happen in the future, but we no longer see the pessimism that was in the air last year. Now, I'm sure you're all asking yourselves the same question. What has happened to make Volkswagen stage a comeback like Nadal's against Medvedev at the Australian Open? Well, pay attention.
Chinese carmaker XPeng develops advanced chips for VW cars. The German group invested $700 million for a 5% stake in XPeng, part of a broader plan to survive as the world's biggest car market transitions to EVs. Hundreds of VW engineers have been working with XPeng's engineers at their respective plants in Hefei and Guangzhou to improve the German group's smart driving expertise.
We already told you this would happen, no matter how much rivalry there may be between geopolitical powers. What matters most to companies is making money. And if that means forming alliances with companies from another country, then that's what they do. Period. This is exactly what's been happening. Volkswagen did not know how to make electric vehicles, so it went to learn from people who did. It also made sure to optimize its logistics chain to assemble the chips, batteries, and all the components that weren't as important or didn't exist at all in traditional vehicles. Remember when we told you how terribly flawed the software in Volkswagen's electric cars was? Well, it looks like that's history now.
VW's updated ID models, a hatchback, an SUV crossover, and a full-size sedan, have garnered praise for fresh interiors and revamped software. In Europe, its latest battery-powered cars have outsold Teslas in recent months, benefiting in no small part from Elon Musk's political antics, but also from improved quality.
And even better, the best is yet to come. 2027 could be a crucial year for the German group, all thanks to the ID.1, which they plan to start producing, an electric vehicle costing just 20,000 euros, with a range of over 250 kilometers. A model that finally brings together all the improvements they've been working on in recent years with Chinese companies. The key to the model? Volkswagen estimates that the cost of batteries for its cars will fall by 50% in 2027. In other words, the German group is finally overcoming the absolute disaster that it took with its gamble on Northvolt. What's more, Volkswagen plans to turn its Wolfsburg factory into something of a nerve center for its electric vehicle network, manufacturing the new T-Roc, and of course, the next generation Golf there. Of course, it is not the only company planning to break into the market. To give just one example, BMW also has its own plans. And yes, the Chinese have done their bit here as well. And we can see the same pattern across much of the European industry. A couple of decades ago, Western companies moved their factories to China, and the Asian giant seized the opportunity to learn and create its own domestic champions. Now, it's Europe that is trying to learn from China, which is why its weight in the import concentration index continues to grow. Of course, while this is a phenomenon that is occurring throughout industry, the sectors that are noticing it most are those that are very technology intensive, but only need a medium-level workforce. In other words, they don't need the best experts in the world. The automotive sector is a perfect example. And okay, Volkswagen may not end up making the best electric car, nor the cheapest, but the German giant has many other aces up its sleeve. Want an example? Well, think about it. When you buy a car, it's not just the car itself that matters. After-sales service is also essential. Knowing that if you take your car to a repair shop, there will be affordable spare parts and the technicians will know how to fix it, to give just one example. In this respect, the German giant has a huge network of repair shops and dealerships that, frankly, provide a lot of peace of mind. And we're not just saying this for the sake of it. Build Your Dreams, the undisputed champion of Chinese electric vehicles, is making a titanic effort to expand its after-sales service in Europe precisely because it knows how important it is. In short, anyone who extrapolated Volkswagen's results in 2024 would have predicted that the company would be basically on the verge of bankruptcy in a few years. But the advantage of being such an old company is that it has already gone through a lot of similar crises, and there's a reason that it has endured to still be with us today. The I'm not saying that its future is guaranteed, far from it. But before being so pessimistic, we must recognize that the company is striving to adapt to the new era. And what can I say? It's still too early to pass judgment, but for now, everything indicates that it's succeeding. And now it's your turn. Were you aware of the dire state the company was in just a few months ago? And what do you think about the comeback it's made in 2025? Will Volkswagen continue to be an industry leader in electric vehicles? You can leave your answers down in the comments. Don't forget that here on Visualeconomik, we release new videos every week, so subscribe if you haven't already to make sure you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. If you like this video, hit like, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, see you next time.